Peace, family. Welcome to another episode of Broken Theory. Today we got the homie Josh ANDRES. What's going on?
What's good, bro? How are you?
How you doing? I'm blessed.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Can't complain. I just wanted to talk about how you got started with music at first.
Yeah, man. Well, first, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you asking me to be part of this. Like for anybody listening, I kind of apologize. Like we were talking off, before I got on. I'm actually driving to another session right now. The last couple weeks have been pretty busy, so my apologies if it breaks up or anything like that, because obviously, like I'm in my car.
All good, bro.
But yeah, man. So like, I've been like in professional music as a professional musician for about, I don't know, 12 years now or so, maybe a little more than that. And by professional, I mean I started making money off of music. I've been, a musician, man, for like 20 years, maybe actually longer than that, I guess, because I took instruments when I was in grade school, so I guess probably even longer than that. But music production wise, for about 20 years, I would say. Got into it like right when I was like at the end of my high school years. So yeah, so that's how I got into it, and then lucky and blessed to be able to do what I love to do, man. And lived in New York for a while, and then recently moved to LA. And I come from a background of really like what kind of got me, I guess, to the point of being able to create music professionally was making sample packs. And was lucky to kind of build a community that supported me, and sold tons of records doing that, placements, all that kind of stuff. Been very, very, very fortunate to be able to do that and kind of build my own sound and an awesome community to go along. And then recently I switched from primarily concentrating on samples to like media composition for film, TV, video games, documentaries, brands, music for hire.
Yeah, nah, that's dope, bro. What would you say is your favorite placement that you've got?
Man, it's a tough one. I've only had like a couple big placements. I worked with Currency, Justice League, more recently Nassan, who's kind of blowing up from Detroit. And Dear Silas, he's another one that's blown up from Atlanta that I recently had a chance to work with.
Yeah, he's dope.
So I mean, those are probably some of my bigger placements. I don't know, it's tough, I think honestly for me I enjoy like more the like grassroots support. I like hearing like all the different producers chop my samples. I don't really, my thing is I've never really been big about like really worrying about placements. I mean, placements are awesome, you know what I mean? And I'm thankful to have the opportunity to work with some of these artists, but at the same time, it's like, I appreciate all the artists that sample my work, because as there's tons of samples out there. And it goes the same now for the media stuff. When a director approaches me and asks me to be part of their project, or a brand, like I was telling you, offline, that I just got hired to do a documentary for a really big DJ company that everybody knows and everybody uses, and just was in New York for that for a couple weeks shooting that. It's one of those things where I think those placements, just because it's more, they're approaching me more from a creative standpoint. Like, they respect my craft, they respect my artwork. There really isn't as much industry BS as you get sometimes with some of the like major labels and stuff like that, or like that kind of thing. So I think I would say, like, if I had to say like what my favorite placement is, I would just say any placement that's with like the average producer, man, to be honest with you. Like, that's real talk. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I really do appreciate the artists that decide to sample my work, that just find me online, that go to Tracklib, that buy my sample packs with their money, man. Because I know, like, these days, like, inflation is high, everything is expensive, and people still to choose to share their art with me, man, and I genuinely appreciate that.
Nah, that's 100%, bro. And I can relate too, because I mean, after COVID, things changed for real for everybody. You know what I mean? So like, for people to actually support you, it means a lot, a hell of a lot. People can't sell tour tickets no more. You know what I mean? So like, the dollar in general getting spent with you and your community is amazing. How do you feel, man, like
it's so?
Go ahead, bro.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you good.
I was just gonna say, yeah, man. I mean, what you said, like, it's not even, like you said too. The one side of it is obviously, like you said, spend their dollars, spend their hard work and money is awesome. But at the same time, there's so many other samples out there now. You know what I mean? It's it's a very saturated market, and I feel like, for somebody to choose me over some of the other, producers that are out there that are just incredible, man. I mean, there's always new work that I'm hearing from new artists who are creating samples that are just incredible. You know what I mean? And I don't look at them as competition in a sense, but like, I still know that sometimes somebody may decide to, go with me over one of those packs, and I genuinely appreciate that.
Nah, I see it, bro. And I hope one day that when I start doing my sound packs, I could do the same type of thing. So venturing off into the sound pack world, what did you release your first sound pack on?
So actually, to be honest with you, I did my first ones with producer loops and like loop masters, like back in the day. But actually, I had kind of a lucky like run in, man. I taught at Scratch DJ Academy in New York City for pretty much right up until I moved to LA. I mean, I left about a year before, 2 years before. So right like at the end of the beginning of the pandemic. So like in 2021, I left Scratch. But when I was at Scratch Academy, I had the opportunity to meet Per, who is the owner of Tracklib, who started the idea with Eric Sermon. And at the time, I had started doing samples, like I said, for loop masters. I worked at a studio that was in Bushwick for a while, and the owner of the studio, he created sound packs, and he was like, yo, you should really try this. I think that you'd have a lot of fun doing it, because he knew that I like to, program synthesizers and play instruments and all that kind of stuff. So he's like, I think you should try it out. So I did that for a while, and it was cool, man. I definitely wasn't making enough to make a living off it. I was probably making like $100-200 a month, man. It wasn't very much, but it like paid for my Metro Pass and other things like that, so it was cool, which was nice. But it was really changed when I started to work with Tracklib. And the interesting thing about that is, like, Tracklib actually took a while. So I'd met Per. He said at the time, this is probably like 2017, I think, maybe 2016, somewhere around there, that I met him. And he was like, we're getting Tracklib off the ground, but right now we're really only working with like full libraries and like labels, like full labels. He was like, so like, we're not really doing anything with individual artists. He's like, but I'll keep you on the radar, because obviously I wanted to be involved. I saw what it could be. I thought it was great because, I came from a background of, like when I first started doing music production, man, I was chopping samples like in Sony Acid Pro and on my MPC 2000 XL. Like, so I was sampling vinyl, and I was familiar with like how difficult it was to clear samples. And I thought it was really cool that Tracklib was really trying to change that. So like I was doing, that. I was trying to get in on that. In the meantime, he was, he was basically like trying to get me on. Like, he was talking to other people, because even though he was the one that started Tracklib, he had like a board of people that were part of that. So, while he was networking and talking and pushing to get me on site, during that time I started reaching out to more people, and I actually got a big break. And while I was waiting for that, I started to work with the Drum Broker. So I put some packs up on the Drum Broker. So like my pack Renaissance, Replicants, these are like my earlier stuff that ended up going on Tracklib later on, but they started up on Drum Broker. And that was when I first actually started to make like real money off my samples, which honestly, like, I'm super thankful for that time, because it carried me through the pandemic. I was lucky that I didn't have to ask for like government assistance or anything like that. it really did carry me through. Because I didn't have a job, man. I was teaching, and we did some Zoom sessions, but it wasn't the same. They severely cut the time that I'd be teaching, so like my hours got cut drastically. I was only working maybe like 5-6 hours a week teaching, and then I was supplementing the other with the money that I was making off Drum Broker. And so did that for a while. Drum Broker really wasn't happy like with the sales. Like I personally thought my sales were good, but apparently they weren't up to standard. I'll say this, like I was definitely making enough. I was making a middle class salary, put it that way, and it still wasn't enough for them. So it just shows like how Drum Broker was definitely like the top of the line, going into the pandemic. And I think this is like Track Club was still kind of getting off the ground at the time, and was building. So like about like halfway through the pandemic, Drum Broker decided to drop me. They decided to drop me just because they had a lot of different artists coming on. So, I was lucky that at that time I had actually been talking to Paramore, and they decided that they wanted to try to go put somebody up on the site, like as an independent artist. And so the rest is kind of history from there, man. Like, there's other things that happened, like with the stems and stuff like that I helped, going on a track list. But for the most part, that's kind of how I got into making samples. So started out Loop Masters, a producer, loops. Then I went to Drum Broker for a while, and now exclusively on Tracklip. I do have some stuff up on some other sites, like I'm on Waves.com, but not all of my projects are up there. I don't really use it very much. Most of my stuff is just self-funded, either through Bandcamp or like put up on Tracklip now.
That's fire.
Oh, and then
man.
obviously gotta give a shout out to Ski too, man.
Yeah,
like Ski, obviously, like
y'all just
Ski
did
Beats,
something.
like we just did the project, yeah. Which was great, man. Ski, like I met Ski at my the job I had right before I was the director of education at a school called Sound Collective in New York City. I was there for 2 years, right after leaving Scratch. And actually, was it 3 years? I started in it's 3 years. So actually it's 3 years. I started in 2020, I left in 2023. But I met Ski through that. And Ski was like really cool. I played him some samples, man. He loved my stuff. He invited me to, be part of Smack Pack. We started Smack Pack live at the school. So I got to hang out with Ski all the time, and Ski became like one of my friends. And I talked to him, often. And he recently, like you said, messaged me. And even though I'm in LA now, man, he still reaches out. He'll say, like, hey, man, you got anything for the new pack? And he started this new series, the Straight Out the Box, where he works with like one sample artist now, like as a showcase. And he asked if I wanted to be part of it, and I said, yeah, definitely. I just did a project with him. But honestly, man, like he grew my community like crazy, because there was a whole group of producers that I'd never been exposed to, that he really boosted me. And then we, Ski, myself, and Diamond actually ended up doing a Tracklit project together that's up right now on Tracklit. It's called Kaleidoscope, where we did live sessions. Ski played bass on it, and Diamond and I played keys. I played the horns and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, man. So like, I've been lucky to work with him, because obviously, he's a legend.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that like I still, man, like I remember watching like rhythm roulettes with him, and stuff that like before I knew him, and I can't believe like that, like he's like a homie now. Like it's just kind of wild to think about.
It's always dope to see those relationships, change from going to like being a fan to like you can call that person whenever you want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because with him, he really is like dialed into the community. Like he really wants to help people out. He really wants to give people exposure. As you know, like with the Smack Pack, for those listeners, if there are listeners that don't use Smack Pack, or if they do use Smack Pack and they've done it before, he always shares the stuff that they chop. He always is posting the samples and the stuff from the contest that people are chopping up, put up on Instagram. So I he genuinely cares, and that's something I think me and him really connect on, because obviously, and this, man, like it's really the game is like it's really kind of a lot of luck, to be honest. Like you kind of have to be right place, right time a lot. and there's tons of talent out there that, you know, just hasn't gotten their shot yet, you know. So if, you know, with my page specifically, and I know Ski has a lot more followers than me, but I try to do the same thing. You know, I try to post as much as I can, like, when people chop my stuff, to give them any help that I can to boost them, you know, like, because there's some fire that's what I'm always getting sent, you know. So I know he agrees too, which is nice.
Nah, for sure, 100%. I'm definitely gonna have to get the pack that you and Ski did. He's gonna be on the show too a little bit later. We trying to coordinate too. So definitely gonna have to grab that. As you progress, how do you feel like a piece of music is ready to be shared with the world?
Man, it's a tough one. Honestly, I don't know if I'm ever like sold on something 100%. You know, like I what I mean by that is sometimes I'll do stuff. So I'll give you an example. I recently did a not a sample, but I'm working on a video game. That is like a Western video game. That's why a lot of the samples that Ski and I worked on recently, the ones I sent him for straight out the box, were like Western inspired, because I was working on a video game that's gonna be announced really soon. That's like a Western game, and it's funny because the theme that I made, when I originally did it, I was like, oh man, this is it. This is like one of the best things I've ever written. Blah blah blah. You know, like I was really amped to get it out. But man, after like, you know, listening to it a few times in the car, and then like talking to the director of the game and all that kind of stuff, I realized, you know, maybe it wasn't exactly what we were looking for. And I thought about different ways I could improve it. And I think also too, like I listen to a lot of music, and you know, I'm always like critiquing my stuff versus like other composers or other producers that are out there. And I don't know, like I felt like it wasn't quite there. And that was after like being super confident after I did it, which I thought was really good.
So was it like because of the reaction that you got from the director, or
no? Like, it was more or less like my own personal. So that's a good question. So it's my own personal, like after listening to other tracks, I just felt like it wasn't quite there. And honestly, the director, like, you know, touched on the director when I sent him the track, he loved it, but he was like, I just don't think that's exactly what I'm looking for. You know, he was like, it's a little bit too orchestral. He was like, I want something that's more like horror, like, because the game has like horror elements. So I was like, all right, cool. You know, I'll go back to the drawing board, and I ended up making something that was like, honestly, man, it's like a Western like hip hop track. Honestly, that it's great. You know, I mean, he likes it. Do I feel like it's 100% there? No. You know, I mean, and by that I mean I feel like, you know, it's you really have to disconnect yourself, and I think, and what I mean by that is like, you have to like think to yourself, like, are you being too critical? You know, I think I run into a lot of producers that are starting out, and I feel like that's something that they really struggle with, is like, when do, like, beginning producers, like, is it good enough? And they're always critiquing their own stuff. And the thing is, some people wait so long that it misses its opportunity to shine. And the general public, man, I really think that for the most part, they don't care. You know what I mean? I think when it comes to you know, is something good or not, you know, some of the stuff that you may critique yourself on doesn't really matter to the general public. You know what I mean? And so, like, I think that, like, you kind of have to disconnect yourself from that, and you have to think to yourself, all right, am I being too critical of my own work, that it's kind of holding it back from succeeding, you know? So yeah, I mean, I don't really think that, you know, for me, I don't think I'm ever really 100% happy, but what I try to do is I try to get it to a point where I feel like it's about 90%. And that's when I release it. That's when I send it to the director. That's when because like I said, it's, again, you know, and especially like if anybody's listening, because I've actually had a few of the community that I do samples for have reached out to me and inquired about, like, how do I get into composition? You know, how do I do film or video game or media? And one thing I'll tell you is, dude, it's like bang, bang, boom, man. You'll get an opportunity and they want it like in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you don't have the time and the luxury to sit there and like critique it. So is it ever really going to be there 100%? Maybe in the director's eyes, it is, you know, but in your eyes, probably not. You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, man, like I said, I just really you know, and you have to really like get thick skin for that kind of thing, and you know, take the feedback. You know, there's a movie I'm working on right now that we're finishing up, and I've sent the director stuff, and he was just like, he's literally said to me, this is just not good. Like, he's literally said that to me. And, you know, that's his opinion, you know, like, and you can't, and then I've sent him stuff, and he's like, holy shit, this is incredible. You know, it goes both ways, you know, so it's just like, you really have to like.
But I look at it like, you know, in a dynamic like that, to where it's good and bad. If he's someone of value as far as like accomplishments, like you could take his advice, it's a good relationship to have, because I feel like more or less he's pushing you into other categories
100%.
you didn't even know 100%. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And he's like,
yeah,
no, but I think
you're right, man.
You can go further into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not like just from a
yeah.
negative perspective. It's more or less
no. Constructive, yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, you know, I actually prefer, and maybe that's because I'm a New Yorker, because that's where I've been for the, you know, a majority of my adult life. That I actually prefer the direct feedback like that. You know, so when he says this is not good, I think you can do better. You know, like that, like I know he means it in a way that's really pushing me. You know, and honestly, when this has happened, you know, in his defense, it's because I'm super busy, and maybe, you know, I'm not dedicating as much time to it as I should be. You know what I mean? And also to this particular film, it's a style of music that I'm not used to composing, you know, so I'm learning things as I go, you know, like certain scenes are definitely me and what I'm known for, my sound, but then other scenes are not, you know, known for my sound, because like with the film, it's not like an album, you know what I mean? You're kind of playing around, unless you're like John Williams or Hans Zimmer and you have the like star power like that. You're essentially, you're essentially like the jack of all trades when it comes to music. So like, for example, like you may have one scene that calls for like club music, and then another scene that calls for like R&B, you know, like old school R&B, you know what I mean? So it's like two completely different genres, and you as the composer have to figure out, how do I make it work? Some composers, you know, what they'll do is they'll hire somebody like an assistant. That's common, you know, where they'll work with them. And then some composers, depending on the budget, have to do it themselves. And because this film particular that I'm working on, it actually had a fairly decent budget, because it's an indie film. It's going to be coming out on Amazon Prime. That film specifically, like I could have hired somebody, but like given that like I have time to work on it because it's still in post-production right now. You know, I want to see if I could do some of this stuff myself, and I did it. You know, like even though he came back, he said, I don't like this, you know, I think you could do better. You know, like I said, like you said, he said, this is not good, I think you can do better, is pretty much what he said. I sent him something else, and he was like, this is it, I knew you could do it. Like that was his response, you know, so that scene's done, you know what I mean? So it's just like, you know, I think, you know, so your question, like, is it ever ready? Like, I think even from like a like creative standpoint in general, not just for like film and TV or whatever, you know, it applies to the music composer too, or producer, because like, for example, if I put out a record, somebody may love it, you know, but somebody's gonna hate it for sure. You know what I mean? It's inevitable, man. Like you can't impress everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
not at all. But good art makes people feel something. They either
some way
hate it 100% or love it 100%.
Yeah, right. I agree with that 100%. And so I think from like the beginner producer standpoint, like for somebody who's you know, really getting into it and trying to figure it out, just put the stuff out, man. And honestly too, I tell my students all the time, dude, the general population loves an underdog. You know what I mean? Like I feel like people are always like, they love watching somebody grow. You know how many times, man, like I have people who followed me from when I was making beats in my bedroom, and now I'm fucking conducting the Costa Rica National Orchestra. Those same people that follow me, you know, from the get-go, like they feel like they're part of something, and they are part of something. They're important to me, you know what I mean? Like they really are, because I remember those people, and I know who they are, because they're the ones that always comment on my posts. They're the ones that you know, donate to, like, I did GoFundMe's and stuff like that early on, and they donated to that, you know. So those people mean a lot to me too, you know. And I think the average producer, like, you're gonna build a community like that, you know what I mean? You're gonna build a community of hip-hop artists and singers and vocalists and all that kind of stuff, that they want to be part of what you're doing, and you have to build that community, because like those people are so essential for your progress, you know.
100%. I mean, that's essentially what I'm really trying to do with this podcast. You know what I mean? Link great minds together and just like grow together. All of us, just like everybody has gems for each other. And if we could all help the younger generation skip a few steps in the process, you know, this type of stuff wasn't available when I was coming up. You know what I mean, with this shit. So if I could help somebody out there, you know what I mean. Definitely.
Yeah, man.
Definitely would love to.
For sure.
Any books that you've read that changed your life?
Oh man. Yeah, man. So there's a I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's actually a really good one that Quincy Jones wrote. I think it's called like the 12 Notes of Life. Let me look it up real quick. It's called, I think it's what it's called. That one's actually a really 12 Notes. It's called 12 Notes on Life and Creativity. That one's actually really good. It's written by Quincy Jones, and a lot of the things that you're talking about in the podcast, he addresses in the book. And basically, each chapter is like one of the notes in the chromatic scale, so it's kind of cool. And he talks about like different things that helped his career. And you know, Quincy, you know, I love Quincy Jones. Like, I think me and him actually have a very similar path. He started as a trumpet player, so did I. That's what I started as. You know, and he kind of got into composition, and he started conducting orchestras. Same thing for me, you know. So I feel like I could really relate to what he's saying. So that book is awesome. You know, honestly, man, I'm a huge Miles Davis fan, and I read his biography, which was also really good. That was a really good one. There's another book actually that is called How to Listen to Music, I think is what it's called, by so Aaron Copland actually wrote it, the composer. I'm sorry, it's called What to Listen to, or What to Listen for in Music. That book's really good as well, and it basically that's kind of more of like it's like a music theory book for people who aren't musicians. And I think that's important to listen to or to read, because what it does, it gives you the perspective of like your audience, right? So he basically talks, there's like 3 levels to the average listener or to the average person when it comes to like music. There's like the listener, which is level 1, which basically has no understanding of music. They just listen to it passively. You know, it's like, you know, they enjoy it as entertainment. Number 2 is somebody who's like a passive or a listener of music, but they may also play instruments for a hobby, like a guitar or whatever. And then number 3 is like the professional musician who basically understands, you know, everything about music. And then he kind of alludes to a level 4, which is somebody who's like musical nirvana. I don't think it's not like a separate one in the book, but basically it's somebody who really understands like music theory, understands all the concepts of the orchestra, but also the rock band and hip hop and all that kind of stuff. And it's like somebody who's able to really like take it all in and work on anything. So that book's actually really good too. I read that one. I would probably say, so the Aaron Copland book, What to Listen to for Music, was one that is common in a lot of like classrooms too, like in academics. So like, you know, if you go to college, that's a book that, you know, you study music, they talk about that book a lot, just because it's written. Aaron Copland, like I said, he was a famous American composer, for those of you that don't know. And he kind of wanted to figure out a way to introduce people who really don't understand what a composer or producer does to music, but in the same breath, he's kind of also telling the composer that this is what the listener's expecting. You know, so I think that's probably one of the better ones that really breaks it down.
No, that's amazing. I love reading, so I definitely like picking people's brains and finding out like different books that's helped them. I'm definitely gonna pick both of those books up. I got Quincy's.
Definitely do, man.
I got one of Quincy's books. It's like a bigger book, and it's more about his life. But the 12 Notes one, I'm definitely gonna pick up, man. Definitely.
Dude, definitely listen to 12 Notes, man. It's awesome.
How do you deal with creative block? You know, I know it could be difficult working on different projects. I know they have deadlines, you know, especially film, movie, and video games. How do you deal with creative block where maybe you are working on a project or something like that?
So that's actually a good question, because I actually had somebody ask me that the other day on Instagram. You know, honestly, for me, man, I work on multiple things. So like I don't, like I told you, I'm working on 3 projects right now, and even though sometimes it can be stressful, it actually helps me creatively. So if so for example, like I told you, like I'm working on a video game. It's like a Western inspired video game. But then this movie that I'm working on that I was just talking about, that one's more like electronic music mixed in with some orchestra music. So it's like completely different. It's like it's like a cyber noir style film.
Yeah.
So the music is completely different than Western music. And then, then this documentary I'm working on for the DJ company is like pretty much like ambient sound design. So like I have like 3 really different projects. So if I get caught on one, I kind of switch gears and work on the other, which helps out a lot. But I also listen to a ton of music, man. And the thing is like, my wife always laughs because we listen to music differently. She listens to music because she enjoys it, and I enjoy the music I listen to too. But I listen to projects that are related to what I'm working on right now. So like for example, like I'll go out and I'll say, okay, I want to work on this Western score. I know I need to get it done because I'm a little behind, so I'll start listening to like Morricone, who did like Fistful of Dollars and Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and Django and stuff like that. I'll listen to him like nonstop. You know what I mean? Like that's all I'm listening to. Then for like the cyberpunk noir one, I'm listening to like synthwave and stuff like that. That's like it's that has some of the elements I'm looking for. That to try to get in that vibe. And so my musical taste, man, the algorithm probably hates me, man, because I listen to like I listen to like classical music, and then like the next day I'm listening to like Alchemist, fucking gangster rap shit. You know what I mean? Like it's like I just it's like so it's
I don't
like
know what
sometimes
to do
I'm
with
listening. Exactly. I don't know what to recommend. Sometimes I'm listening to music more from an academic standpoint, like from studying it, and then sometimes I'm listening to music like to enjoy it. But I would say 90% of the time, it's more from an academic standpoint. You know what I mean? Like where I'm like, okay, what instruments that they're using. I'm like, as I'm driving or as I'm listening to it, I'm like focusing on different instruments that they're using in the orchestration of the song. And then I'm thinking, okay, I can do this here, I can do this there. I listen to a lot of film scores, obviously, listen to a lot of video game scores. And then honestly too, with sample packs, I mean, like, I've been doing this forever. Like you can go back through my packs and you can kind of hear the inspiration of like Dionne Warwick, Willie Hutch, Curtis Mayfield, like all that stuff. Like I was listening to heavy on a lot of those projects I was working on. Even like Miles Davis. Like I told you, I love Miles. So like even like some of the trippier jazz stuff I was doing, it was like Miles in the '80s. It's like that's kind of how I listen to music and break that block, I guess. I would say like just working on multiple projects, and then also just trying to listen for inspiration and changing up what you listen to. And I honestly, I would say I tell my students that too, that the best thing you can do is listen to music you don't like, because the thing is you're gonna pull stuff from that, because if you can add elements of a certain genre to your songs, you may pull in a whole new fan base, and you may create something new that's never been done before. And I feel like that's what pushes genres forward. Ski, for example, one thing I love about Ski is he's like that. He did the Switch on Bap stuff where he was doing like, modular synths with boom bap drums, which is kind of crazy because that's always been like chopped soul samples and jazz samples, and then he took electronic sounds, and I think like, he's somebody like that too. He listens to a lot of music that he, pulls inspiration from, so listen to classical, man, like, listen to like the orchestra, listen to like, film scores, all that kind of stuff. I feel like that really helps.
Dope. What's some advice you would tell your younger self when starting off?
Be ready to be told no a lot. You get told no a ton. I always say, man, like this video game that I got was me just like literally networking for pretty much a straight year. I just locked it down, and it was like I got told no or didn't get a response so many times, and I bet the 100th time that I reached out to somebody, I got them to listen to a demo and they loved it. And that's how I got on this project. And by the way, this project's a AAA project. It's got like a multi-million-dollar budget. You know what I mean?
I think I know what you're talking about. I think maybe, I know what you're talking about. I'm not saying it though.
Yeah. So, so I'm doing the music for that one, and it's one of those things where like you're gonna email a lot, you're gonna get told no a lot, or not even get an answer. People are going to treat you like that you don't know what you're doing when you do know what you're doing. It's you really have to have thick skin, and I think that if you can if you're okay with that and you can put up with it, then you're gonna thrive. And I also think too, like, there's no age limit, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, my placements, like, I didn't get my first like big placements until I was like 32, 33. And I started producing music when I was like professionally, when I was like in my early 20s. It took years, man, and I think that you just kind of have to be ready to kind of grind it out and, figure out your path. And I think if you love it enough, you figure it out. Like for me, like I got into music education, and it's something I never thought I would do. I honestly, man, when I was in high school, I hated school, and I didn't think that it was going to be the path, but now I love music education. I really like inspiring the future generation to do the same thing, so
yeah, 100%.
That's still part of my life. I still teach, even though my schedule probably doesn't have the time. I still teach, what I mean?
Well, nowadays with the internet, you can do it.
It helps
from anywhere. Yeah.